I'm going to tell you a quick story. Yesterday, we were preparing for Crypto Town Hall, our Twitter Spaces, and we had Ryan Selkis joining, and we were going to go over his 97-thread thesis on what was going to happen in the back half of the year. About 30 minutes before Crypto Town Hall, Alex Mashinsky was arrested. We had this oh crap moment. We need to book new guests, talk about Alex Mashinsky, get Celsius insiders, and then about 20 or 30 minutes into that very Twitter Spaces, we got the news very briefly in one sentence that Ripple, that was considered not a security on secondary sale. And as we were on Twitter Spaces, dug in further and further. What a day it was yesterday, and we're still absorbing the news of this massive victory, at least in my eyes, of Ripple over the SEC, putting the SEC once again on the ropes, continuing to get beaten down by the justice system. But of course, when it comes to legal cases and the justice system, I don't know very much. So I bring on the people that do. We've got Meta lawman James Murphy today. And of course, David Silver, my favorite two lawyers who hopefully I will never have to personally hire. I've also got Eric Krown on the back end to talk about what this means for the markets and to look at some charts. It's going to be a massive show to get today, guys. Let's go.
Let's go.
What is up, everybody? I'm Scott Melker, also known as the Wolf of Wall Street. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Everybody here is probably subscribed to the channel and has a knee-jerk reaction to hit the like button at this point, but it feels like if you're going to YouTube, you're contractually obligated to say both of those things. Absolutely massive day, guys. Of course, we have a very hyperbolic title. The SEC is dead. Alt season begins. I don't know if either of those things are true, but it's really good to be able to dance on Gary Gensler's temporary grave, at least for one day, right? And I'll take what I can get. Of course, we have the Bitcoin maxis poo-pooing us. Some lawyers saying this isn't really a win for Ripple, saying that it will be appealed. It'll go to the Supreme Court. The premise is false, that the judge got it wrong. But when have we ever in history of all time on this spinning rock that we live on ever had consensus over a legal decision by any judge ever? I think that maybe the lawyers today will agree with me, but it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll have pushback and they won't. But I'm going to bring them on right now because nobody wants to hear me talk about the law. I've got James Murphy, Meta lawman, and of course, David Silver. David, you're like in a different place every time we talk. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sitting in the bathroom at the Four Seasons in Maui right now.
Weren't you in Alaska like 2 weeks ago or something?
Wait, I think I got my earphones on. I'm good now. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. David, that's hardcore. What time is it where you are?
3 a.m., 1 a.m.?
3 a.m. I flew in yesterday, so I'm still on East Coast time.
That's hardcore.
Okay, well, welcome from he's going to every state not connected to the continental United States. He's on a grand tour of Hawaii and Alaska. He probably can't hear us right now, I can tell. So, James, let's start talking. Is this a win? Let's just start right there. Is this a win? Was this unexpected? What is it?
It was a huge win. Very big day for the XRP community. Anybody who owned XRP. You know, the stakes, Scott, were enormous. Because if the court had ruled that XRP is an unregistered security, think about that for a moment. That means all of the individuals, all of the hedge funds that own XRP are now in possession of an unregistered security, which would be illegal to sell to anyone else. And when I say illegal, a crime to sell to anyone else. So what is the value of something that is illegal to sell to anyone? It's zero. So huge day for XRP. The XRP community, huge day for Larson and Garlinghouse. All of their sales are in the clear. And, you know, a very important ruling. It will probably be appealed. But the finding that when Larson and Garlinghouse sell on an exchange and when Ripple itself sells on exchange, that's not a securities transaction. That pretty much puts everybody in the clear who has no affiliation at all with Ripple. Any miscellaneous investor is good unless this case gets reversed on appeal.
Right. And you made the point on a previous show, not only would those people be holding something that's value is zero, every time they've sold it retroactively, they would have been breaking the law.
That's true. Whether that case would ever have been prosecuted is doubtful, but that's there's a willfulness component. I don't want to overstate it. If you know what you're doing and know that there's a very substantial risk that you're selling an unregistered security, then you're liable for a crime. You have to have a state of mind about breaking the law. And so if a federal judge in a very, very high profile case rules it is a security, an unregistered security, and you go ahead, then you are really taking a substantial risk of criminal liability.
I'm not sure, David, can you hear us?
I'm good. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we hear you. So do you have effectively the same opinion? You came on Spaces yesterday. I'd stepped off for like 5 minutes, but I heard you kind of in shock, surprised. Your friends were calling to dunk on you. You said the SEC was going to win. So you were obviously at least surprised by the decision.
I'm surprised, not shocked. But I feel like the echo chamber of crypto Twitter yesterday was too enthusiastic. There was just, irrational exuberance based on a trial court decision.
That was me.
Yeah,
that was me. Yeah, but go ahead.
So effectively, this was a split decision, and this was the right decision. Now, just because I am wrong doesn't mean that the judge didn't get it right. So I can acknowledge that. But here, I've always been a believer that the resale on an exchange is never a security. So I think that, which is the largest component, which is what shot the markets up, is the right decision. But here, for Ripple, outside, if you take away the clickbait headlines, here, they basically said the initial sale is a security. The fundraising mechanism was a security, but the secondary resale and the sale of tokens on an exchange is not. And that's huge. And that's great for the space. Look, I have a vested interest. In my personal life, everyone thinks I'm pro crypto. In my personal life, everyone thinks I am a huge crypto, Bitcoin, token person. In the echo chamber of crypto Twitter, I am seen as a cautious, if almost anti-crypto person. So there's two very different things going on here. This was a huge day for the crypto markets, but let's not lose the side of the fact here. This is a district court judge. We're in the third inning of a baseball game. It's the earth-shattering amount of monetary movement yesterday in the crypto markets is irrational exuberance. The appeal here, and James is right. I mean, as the SEC is going to come in and appeal this hard, but Ripple is going to appeal this hard too. This was an awful day for the main people who made money at Ripple early on. This case is going to trial. The footnotes in the case are basically just legal. They're just crazy legal things. There's nothing truly settled here. The headline here is great. And I'm not downplaying the importance of what happened yesterday, but what I'm saying here is we're in the third inning of a baseball game and it's 7-0. And Ripple had a great day. They had a better day. They scored 7 runs. They should win the game here. But the fact that the sale is bad, it's kind of like the Ethereum presale. The Ethereum presale, and this goes back to the Hinman speech, Ethereum presale should be deemed a security. Everyone else who's touched Ethereum since should not. And that's basically what the court said yesterday.
But so, James, isn't this absolutely massive, though, for the Coinbase case? Because to my understanding, the real premise, the grounds from the SEC is that Coinbase, there's a few things, but the main one is that they've been offering the sale of unregistered securities. And if XRP is not an unregistered security on secondary sale, then it seems like the SEC's case against Coinbase just got a hell of a lot weaker.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm a believer in markets, and there's a very strong signal in the market about what the market thought of the impact on Coinbase. So yeah, the premise there is that Coinbase has listed crypto assets that are securities. And this decision of Judge Torres totally undermines that idea. And as I said, if Garlinghouse and Larson and Ripple itself can sell their XRP on an exchange and that not be considered a security transaction, then any investor who has no affiliation with an underlying project, whether it's Algorand, Solana, or any of the other tokens that are issued in Coinbase, should be in the clear. But as David rightly points out, it's one judge. It's a district court judge. It's not binding precedent. But, you know, these two cases are in the same court there in Lower Manhattan. I have no doubt these judges know each other and respect each other. And so I think the judge in Coinbase is going to give a good, long, hard look at the decision by Judge Torres. And I think she got it right. It makes sense that you don't enter into an investment contract with somebody you don't know. And as soon as that trade settles, you have nothing to do with them going forward. And none of the money that you receive when you sell that token is being funneled back to Ripple. You know, it makes sense that under Howey, it's not an investment contract. So I think she got it right. I think that part of the decision will be upheld on appeal, but it's not a sure thing. So when David talks about an overreaction, I think there's just a tremendous amount of relief, about the worst case scenario is now off the table.
I also want to talk about that. So I do think it's a rational exuberance. I mean, obviously XRP nearly doubled in price. We saw coins like Matic, ADA, go up, 30-ish% at the top. But to be fair, and David, I don't disagree that the mood was irrational exuberance, but those coins dropped 30% just a couple weeks ago because they were effectively named passively unregistered securities in enforcement action. So I can see why a Solana, an ADA, a Matic would basically just retrace those losses, which, by the way, happened overnight on a Friday, just to get back to the price that they were before that bad news happened. I mean, Ripple has been just taking a beating for years because of this, right? I mean, delisted by every American exchanges all over the world. They're going to get relisted, right? So I don't know that this price move, considering it was in the multiple dollars range at one point, is so crazy.
So I think if you just take a step back, and I can't swear to this, but I sold my Ripple when the SEC sued. When the SEC sued Ripple, I sold my Ripple on Coinbase.
And why wouldn't you?
Day I could.
Yeah,
I want to say I sold at 55 cents. So it's not irrational if you take from when the case was filed to today, the uptick. And so from that perspective, because I'm not a price guy, I am not saying it's irrational, the actual price movement and the value. I don't talk about value of cryptos. But I did sell mine, and I would buy again today if I believed in it, if I bought crypto and I just didn't receive it when I settled cases. But from the perspective of are the markets, I don't really, the irrational exuberance, and I think this almost plays into the bigger ETF conversation. If you want to look at what Gensler is going to say, for everyone who hates Gensler, but if you want to see what they can say is, look, a district court judge made a ruling that was positive, and the markets have this type of volatility. That's the volatility argument. I don't even think you can almost throw out the market manipulation argument for a second. This is just a volatility argument. Look what happened on a district court judge. When I filed the first lawsuit, I think in 2014 against Cripsy, CoinDesk reported on every single motion we filed, because there was no other real litigation going on. We then sued Coinbase. But every time there was price, we truly believe there was price movement in 2014 based on the judge's rulings in that case. And ultimately, I think that that's not good for the space. There should have been a bump yesterday. Absolutely. It was a great day in crypto. It was a great day for crypto believers. But was the bump rationally tied to the metrics of the market? I don't know. Look at Coinbase stock, for instance. This just means, and I think Coinbase, forget the case for the second, this means Coinbase should be allowed to sell everything right now. Now, until the Second Circuit comes in and knocks down this ruling, which I put at a 65% chance they don't. It's not like, appellate courts just normally knock down district court rulings. Most judges will tell you they have a 75-80% confirmation rate of their rulings. So this is not like the court's going to come in. But we're in for an 18 months of, there's still a lot of surprises. Again, 7-0, third inning of the baseball game is the best example I can give.
Yeah, I like that. So here's my next question. So we're obviously celebrating this as a win, largely. I do believe that it's a win, certainly for the 68 so tokens that have passively been named securities in these SEC enforcement actions. The question now, though, becomes, how difficult does this make it for any new project to launch? Like, all the existing tokens seem like this is a huge win, but the fact that the XRP offering is actually a security from the beginning, doesn't that mean that it's going to be exceptionally hard for anybody to launch anything else in the United States? Like, now we have precedent for that part.
Not necessarily. The mechanism of distribution of the tokens has to be reconsidered, but I can imagine, I'm semi-retired now, but I could imagine lawyers that I used to work with, lawyers I know, are advising, well, what if you just distributed your tokens using an algorithm on an exchange? According to Judge Torres, that's just fine and dandy. So instead of engaging with, the pre-mine and VCs and hedge funds and all of that, which are investment contracts under this ruling, you just distribute your token on exchanges.
So some sort of fair launch that's more available to the public and not to insiders.
Yeah,
Okay.
just for the record, I'm not saying do it. I'm not saying do it, but if the Second Circuit affirms what Judge Torres said about those exchange sales, then I would presume that you're going to see a lot of advice from lawyers in the space saying do it that way.
They're going to loophole the hell out of this.
Nowadays, I feel like I have to say, I used to be at a big law firm in Washington, D.C., and my big law firm friends all reached out to me yesterday. All of them are ecstatic because all this did was create chaos for fancy lawyers at big firms on how to deal with the next round of market launches.
Yeah.
But they all said one thing, and I do agree with what they're saying on this one thing. Coinbase is now, and I use Coinbase almost like Kleenex right now. The US exchanges now are going to have a more important role. But the problem with what James just said, if you simply drop your token on Coinbase and then you profit, let's just say $1 billion on the first day, without regulation, without who's the gatekeeper of that information, Coinbase isn't going to play that game. Coinbase is going to want to make sure they are protected and they don't create new problems for themselves by making other people rich. They want to just make sure that everything's approved by the SEC.
They want to make sure they get rich.
And get rich by the trade and get rich on their own stock and get rich on their own trading. But I don't think this is going to open up floodgates for Coinbase to simply start taking every token for free and trading them without.
Yeah, I don't think that's what. I don't think that's it. I think James's point, at least to the understanding of the layperson, to me, is that they will very closely look at the wording and find ways to be arguably compliant in the way that they launch in the future. Right. I mean, is that correct, James? I mean, basically, you've got the language here. Now you read it, you interpret it, and you find a way.
Yeah, you know what? And what's left in that Ripple case is one claim for aiding and abetting against Larson and Garlinghouse. And the issue there is what was in their head. Did they believe or were they reckless about whether it was an issuance of a security? Well, if you think about it, if you're taking action based on a ruling of a federal judge, then I don't think any court's going to find that was reckless to engage in that, that avenue of distribution through an exchange. And by the way, here's a funny little quirk here. At some point, if it's upheld, Ripple's going to have to pay, for those institutional sales, which were deemed to be investment contracts. And it may be a big number. Here's what's funny. They can just go sell more XRP on an exchange to get the money.
I mean, that was always like, let's be honest. Larson and Garlinghouse had a history of selling into every pump of XRP right there. I think we celebrate this victory because it's a victory for the market, but it doesn't necessarily forgive the things that we viewed as bad behavior or as a little bit on the line at the time, right? Your point is exactly right. They've got a hell of a lot of XRP to sell still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, $1 billion fine. I think we all agree if XRP gets hit with $1 billion, they could care less.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we don't want a OTC market that's unregulated. And I think that's what the SEC is going. Well, first of all, they're going to appeal, and they're going to appeal fairly quickly because they have a PR problem, they have a legal problem, and they have an ethical problem. Those are three bad problems to have when you're a government entity. Normally, the government's supposed to always be on the high road. They're supposed to be doing the things that are moral, ethical, and legal. And when the government is the one that's now seen to be 0 for 3 on those 3 metrics, that's a bad sign. And I
The
think
SEC is
that's what
getting
the people in the
destroyed.
space believe.
Yeah, that timing issue is a really big one. So the question now is, are they going to go forward with a trial? It's going to take a lot of time. There's still more discovery to do, I think, and try Garlinghouse and Larson on whether they aided and abetted on a claim that the SEC has already won. So there is no incremental benefit to the SEC by even winning that case, because they get the complete relief against Ripple. So, however, we have a rule, Scott, that you cannot take piecemeal appeals. You got to appeal one final judgment. There are narrow exceptions if the judge permits you to take something called an interlocutory appeal. But I agree with David that, the timing here, I think they want to appeal fast, because all of these exchange cases, Bittrex, Binance, Coinbase, all of them are going to argue, hey, looky here at what Judge Torres has done. There's no way trades on our marketplace are securities transactions. We want the case dismissed now. So it's better for the SEC to be able to say, we are appealing that decision, as opposed to, one day when the trial's done of Larson and Garlinghouse, why, by golly, we'll then appeal in the future is less strong. So I think, this is going to be really interesting for us law nerds. Are they going to go forward with a pointless trial against Larson and Garlinghouse where they get no incremental benefit, or are they going to dismiss and take it immediately to the Second Circuit?
At some point, you got to imagine that legislators are going to just start asking the SEC why they're spending all their money on this and why this is such a major focus. Interesting comment here from Woman Who Runs with Wolves. I assume we're the wolves. Bottom line, we need smart legislation. Goes on to say, judges can't make laws. Gary Gensler can't make laws, right? But the Howey test also isn't a law from legislation. It's precedent from a court case, correct? And I mean, that's what we're still talking about 90, 80, 90 years later.
Right. But now we've got such great examples around the world of how to do it, in the European Union and Singapore, Hong Kong, all, Kazakhstan. I mean, it's embarrassing now that we have no regulatory framework passed by our elected representatives, who really ought to be the ones making this decision about how this important segment of our economy is going to be regulated. So, there was a bill proposed 2 days ago by Senators Lummis and Gillibrand, which basically makes virtually all crypto assets commodities.
And it says that the exchanges should be regulated by the CFTC and not the SEC, which would just absolutely destroy this case against Coinbase as well. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you know what? That kind of is on Gensler. If his enforcement program, this, regulation by enforcement, wasn't so, bad and contrary to how the SEC ought to operate and how markets ought to be regulated, that he probably lost the opportunity to be the chief regulator for crypto assets because of his own leadership. And that's something that's pretty significant.
I mean, I said this yesterday when I got off the plane. I think that this is really important. This was a crappy timing by the SEC. Everyone knew, every intelligent person knew what Ripple was doing was wrong when this started and they started selling. They didn't bring the action until it was too late. Coinbase, I'm not a believer that because the SEC, they gave the registration statement and let them do the IPO, that it was off. They should have sued Coinbase in 2015, 2016.
Sure.
So by waiting, they're now the ones with egg on their face, and the world has shifted. And as crypto has become more relevant in the world, in the financial markets, the narrative has changed. I think the SEC wins all of these cases if they file them at the appropriate time, because back then, guys like me who were early adopters, I mean, I'm not OG, I'm like second G. I've been in the space since 2013. And I just think that in 2013, when this was all happening, that was the time to do this, create the law when crypto wasn't really relevant. But the relevance, the timing, and the whole world has changed, and making arguments about these things retrospectively is what just makes the SEC looks bad. And they're making arguments that just aren't applicable today. And we can talk about whether whether the US government is going to do laws. The US is eventually going to pass laws. We're retroactive. We're not a country that does things proactively in when it comes to our laws. So we will see Congress eventually act. They just react reactively, and that's what's happening now. We're fighting fights that we shouldn't be fighting today on old news. And I think that's why the SEC has so many problems in these cases, and why guys like me have egg on our face, because we were arguing back in the day. Like, someone threw a tweet at me from like 5 years ago yesterday.
They love to do that.
Yeah. But I like, the world has changed. Again, in my real personal life, I'm very pro crypto to people who I speak to at like my kids' soccer games and my kids' like sporting events. Everyone there thinks I'm this massively pro crypto person. Then you see me on, on like the crypto town halls. I'm definitely to the left, like in the echo. I'm to the left or to the right. I don't even know which side I am on the echo chamber.
I don't know what side. Yeah.
But I'm on a side. I'm not in the middle. I'm not in the middle of the road, guys. So ultimately, I think I keep saying this. But when I've read everything in the last 24 hours, the court got it right for today.
Yeah, listen, go ahead, James, and then I want to read you the SEC's response to this case. But go ahead, please.
It is funny, but so we've talked about second order effects. The third order effects, I guess, are the Bitcoin ETF applications. And when the SEC was giving this feedback to the recent submissions, hey, get really specific on who you're intending to use your surveillance agreement with and who's going to custody your assets. They wanted them to say Coinbase, because it's very easy to imagine a rejection on the grounds that you are proposing to use a custodian and a market surveiller who is an unregistered national securities exchange, just like we said in the lawsuit. Rejected. Now, the premise of the lawsuit is shaky. It's not definitively gone, but it's really shaky. And so if they don't have that argument anymore, they're starting to run out of good arguments to prevent a spot ETF, given all of the other, more complex derivative products they've approved.
Yeah, I want to just read this really quick. This was the SEC's response to the Judge Torres ruling. We are pleased that the court found that XRP tokens were offered and sold by Ripple as investment contracts in violation of the securities laws in certain circumstances. The court agreed with the SEC that the Howey test governs the securities analysis of crypto transactions and rejected Ripple's made-up test as to what constitutes an investment contract, instead emphasizing that Howey and subsequent cases have held that a variety of tangible and intangible assets can serve as a subject of an investment contract. Further, the court rejected Ripple's fair notice argument, noting that the Howey test is clear and that claiming ignorance is not a defense to violating the securities laws. We will continue to review the decision. This sounds like they're coping.
Yeah, I predicted this. When there's so much dunking and spiking the ball on Twitter and on some YouTube shows I went on, the question was, well, how's the SEC going to react to this? I said, they're going to react by saying, this is great. We won.
Yeah, we won. Yeah, yay. We won.
Yeah, but, the fact of the matter is they put a big, dark cloud over trading of XRP today on secondary markets. And, I guess it's partly cloudy now. I mean, it's much of it has been removed. They lost in a big way. And I don't think they have much of a choice but to appeal. And what I say to people is who are like, why would they appeal? It's clear now they lost. I'd say, well, let's put the shoe on the other foot. If Torres had ruled XRP itself, the token, is a security, all trading on the secondary market is securities transactions, is there any doubt that the defendants would appeal, that the XRP community would, by golly, demand appeal? No, there's no doubt. But like I said, I believe in the signal of the market in terms of who won. We saw what happened with that XRP price, what's happened with Coinbase. What if the SEC was a stock? Would it be up or down after that decision was rendered? I think it would have hit an air pocket and found a lower level.
Look, I've been using Rocky for the last 24 hours. This is for the first Rocky quote that's important. Rocky I think it was Rocky Balboa. So I guess the fifth one. No, Tommy, yo, I haven't heard a bell yet. This is the fight's not over. That's number one. And number two, and this one's what happened yesterday, is when he hit Drago and you see the blood trickling out of Drago's eye. Look, man, he's human. He bleeds. The SEC is bleeding right now, and this is going to open up for the wolves. I mean, you got to remember, you have Coinbase, Binance, Bittrex, all with the best lawyers in the world fighting the SEC, who are salivating, one, that the lawyers are going to make a ton of money because this made their lives and their arguments a lot easier. And number two, the Coinbase approach of Coinbase, you have to remember, has been issuing press releases via their filings. Everything Coinbase does is basically a press release. I'm a huge fan of that legal strategy. But they themselves said, if you don't grant our major questions argument, we're going to ask for an interlocutory appeal. So there's even the SEC right now might be like, thanks, guys. Now we're going to ask for this interlocutory appeal. It sounds like a big word, but all that means is that a party can skip in front of the rest of the case and try and go to an appeals court. And I think what James was saying is very true. Why fight the trial for the rest of the XRP issues that you've already won, and now you're just talking about a fine? Whether it's $1 or $5 billion doesn't really matter. If you can skip to the head of the line and get an appellate court decision, you're one step away from the Supreme Court. And let me tell you something. There's a big difference here between what the Second Circuit is going to do, which is a more liberal circuit, versus what the Supreme Court, a more conservative bench, is going to do. Because the Supreme Court is going pro-business all the way. So we have no idea what the conservative Supreme Court is going to do with crypto, because there are a lot of people who, if I'm old, I was called a boomer yesterday. And I was very offended by being called a boomer yesterday.
I'm 46 and I'm like way boomer in this community. So
me too. I'm 46 also, and we are apparently boomers, but that means the Supreme Court's freaking old. So at this point, that's really an important distinction, that if they do get to cut the line, that's 18 months more of uncertainty.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I thought when you were going to quote Rocky, you were just going to scream Adrian, or you're going to say if he dies, he dies, right? But you went with different ones. Probably some of the most quotable movies. So I didn't expect you to go to Rocky Balboa, which is like kind of the worst one, honestly. I mean, any final thoughts here, guys, on what this all means? If we missed anything, I think we kind of discussed what it means for Coinbase. I think we discussed what it means for future launches. I think we know what it means for all the other coins in existence. Is there anything that we're potentially missing here? Or is there any chance, like a lot of lawyers have been saying, that the judge just completely got this wrong?
Well, lawyers are saying that. I disagree. I think it makes sense that on an exchange, you're not entering into an investment contract with a counterparty that you have no idea who they are. So I think she got that right. And, honestly, as a lawyer, it's, tip of the cap to that legal team that Ripple put together, a real all-star expensive team that really sort of put the SEC on trial through discovery and got more information out of the SEC than any case I've ever seen. And then John Deaton as well, coming in on behalf of thousands of XRP holders. I think that was impactful. And the reason I think that is it's right there in the opinion that she cites to that and says that purchasers in this, what she calls programmatic trading on exchanges, may not have ever heard of Ripple. So they weren't thinking that they were, making an investment of money into Ripple. And so hats off. I mean, people have a good reason to celebrate that whole XRP community. It's been a punishment since December of 2020, just dealing with this process. And by the way, it isn't easy. If you've been through this, you never forget it. The psychological toll it takes on people like Garlinghouse and Larson, to be, accused of fraud for years by the most powerful entity on the face of our earth, and that is the U.S. federal government. To bear up under that day in and day out takes a psychological toll. So my hat's off. They decided they could have, I bet you they could have settled on the exact terms of this, where Judge Torres came out. They would have been delighted. Yeah, we'll pay it. We'll pay a fine as long as XRP is cool. Now we're good. So hats off to them. And but that's a battle. War's not over. It's important for people to keep that in mind.
David, final thoughts before we let you go to sleep.
I'm a New York Mets fan, and the New York Mets are finding ways to lose right now with the biggest payroll in Major League Baseball. I think that we have to be very careful here, because if XRP and the crypto community overshoots and does stupid things based on this, that they still have a chance to lose.
That's what we do.
I think what James just said actually nails what happens. Ripple would have taken this decision and would have taken this ruling on day one, and the SEC never would have agreed to this. So don't be the New York Mets and find ways to lose, and do not steal the don't
defeat
you
from
have
the jaws of victory. Defeat from the jaws of victory.
Out of your hand and grab defeat. So I think there's a lot of, again, it was good, but there's a lot of irrational exuberance. There's a lot of things going on. The long-term impact here is simply, you had a really good day, enjoy it. I do think that, the legal teams for all the exchanges right now are salivating on how to move forward, but there are a lot of ways that this can still go sideways. This is not, this is not the end. We're still 7-0 in the third inning. Great place to be. I'd rather be winning 7-0 than losing 7-0.
Yeah, especially if like a tornado or hurricane comes through and they call the game and we win and it's over. And listen, I'm going to enjoy my irrational exuberance for a day, but I will identify as an irrational exuberator for today and just accept it and move on. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Got to move on to Eric, who's been waiting patiently in the wings to talk about what this means for the market. Gentlemen, I'm sure see you on Twitter Spaces or something very soon. Thank you very much.
I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Guys, as I said, we're moving on now to talk about what this all means for the markets. Absolutely massive day for the markets. I got to watch Eric getting dressed in the wings, which is pretty cool.
I was also eating some watermelons as well.
I thought, I think he's eating watermelon, getting some buttons ready, whatever, man. It's cool.
Have to do the hair as well. Yeah. Good to see you, Scott.
Listen, good to see you too. Monster week for markets, right? Just in general. I think this was the best week for stocks basically since November. We obviously saw the Ripple decision coming in yesterday, which sent altcoins and kind of the crypto market flying. Not as much Bitcoin as maybe people would have expected. So what are you looking at right now, like broad strokes for the markets?
Broad strokes for the markets. I mean, if you're talking about cryptocurrency, as always, for me, the focus is on Bitcoin, right? And Bitcoin did get a decent move yesterday, nothing groundbreaking. It was mostly about...
kind of weak.
Yeah. It's mostly about the altcoins, it kind of seemed like to me. And, obviously that was related to, the decision that came out yesterday. So it's actually very interesting to listen to the prior two guests about that. I'm no lawyer, nor do I claim to be, but as far as technical analysis goes, as far as quantitative analysis goes, I'm still looking at my models, which suggest that higher is more likely than lower at this point. I can show my screen over here if you
please do.
If you desire.
I would desire that.
Let me make sure I don't give you the wrong tab, because I have some very.
I won't bring it up till you give me the thumbs up, because
All right, we're good. Yeah, it's just
it looks like a non-embarrassing chart. Yeah, okay, good. You're good.
Yeah, nnone of that hentai going on here. That's good. Anyways, don't laugh. So as far as Bitcoin goes, as on the higher term timeframes here, I do look at this as still kind of range bound. Now, it is in a very powerful position within this range. However, the big area for me is about 30,800 right now. So as long as Bitcoin's above there, pressure remains on to the upside. I look at this as just a genuine pullback and probably continuation to come over the next couple weeks. I believe we spoke on a Spaces actually 2 weeks ago, and I kind of said the same thing. And I think that now is 2 weeks away from then, and we're probably seeing kind of the next the next leg of this move start to slowly emerge. So the models that I'm looking at right now come in twofold, or at least the two, I think, main ones that I probably want to present on a video like this would be one. This is based off of an indicator setup and strategy that I have here on TradingView. It's very, very simplistic, just a momentum oscillator / volatility indicator, and then using a statistics indicator to take profit. And if I go ahead and back test this relationship that this strategy has had on the 12-hour time frame, we've seen 35 of these setups over the past 4 years now, going back to 2019. And of those 35, about 63% almost have been, a profitable move to the upside. In this case, this one did fire off more recently here at about this was Sunday, actually. Sunday when Bitcoin was trading about 30,150 or so here on Bybit. And, that would have a slightly higher probability for obviously upside in this case, going back into the strategy tester. We can see a lot of things through the performance summary, actually. And the ones that I really want to be focusing on here is that if this does play out in that upside fashion, which, slightly higher probability, the average winning trade was printing about 15, 16%. There's going to be some variance within that, of course. But in this case, if we were to play around with numbers here and just look at the, look at what that would look like on the charts, well, that would be suggesting, 16% plus current, or not current price, but from where that setup was given, that put Bitcoin somewhere around 35,000 bucks. I think that's a rather interesting target, all things considered, because that is one of the last major CME gaps coming in from last year's. Oops, I am on the wrong chart right there. There we go. I'm on the, I'm looking at this this gap down.
I don't think your chart changed for us, so it might have.
Bastard. Okay, I see what happened.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, that was me. That was my bad.
On your last chart, I did notice this was the highest. Since you're looking at the 12-hour, this was the highest 12-hour close yet in this entire cycle. Was 2 days ago. That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
My apologies. I completely whiffed that one. So here would be the setup. Again, just a momentum and volatility indicator combined with statistics indicator, and basically, when we've seen this setup fire off over the past 3 years, I'll just show you the stats back again over here. It's been 35 over the past 4 years. About 63% of those have had some nice upside movements. So again, going into the performance summary, we did see for the winning side, for the winning trades, those did print about an average of 15, 16%. On the losing side, 13%. So, these are big numbers here, very, very big numbers. However, in this case, if this one does end up being a loser, it will be considered a loser by this algo below about 29,500, 29,400. But until then, but until then, pressure on, risk remains to the upside as far as I'm concerned. And like I said, putting 15, 16% on current price action, that puts Bitcoin somewhere around 35. Again, that is very, very close, or right in alignment with one of the last CME major gaps coming in from May of last year on this gap down. Yeah, May 2nd of last year. So I do like that as kind of like a general area of interest. I'm sure if we were to put on an inverted fib here, which I believe I already have, yes, indeed, that'd actually be the 382 Fibonacci retracement from the ultimate high to the ultimate low of this cycle thus far, which is a pretty, all things considered, when we're talking about like macro cycles, that's a pretty realistic kind of bounce play. Even if you're like super bearish, that's not like it's not like super.
Yeah, it's just a good place to look for a short. If you're super bearish, you just accept. You're looking for higher prices to short if you're being honest, right? So,
or you just short the whole way up.
You mean the people who've been shorting since 17,000? Yes, I know those guys.
That's a rough conversation to be having, man. At that point, Bitcoin already went down like what, 70, 80%? Actually, I'm just almost 80% right there.
Yeah.
Rough, man. Anyways, again, so that would be that model. I have another model if you want to go through it as well, but kind of suggest something relatively similar here. It's just a volatility versus stochastic momentum setup. Volatility represented by this indicator. Anytime that we see it get down towards these extreme lows, the expansion phase that naturally falls, mathematically falls, as it is kind of programmed to do such, has led to about an average move of around 40% over the course of a month, little over a month, actually 37 days, with the standard deviation of about 10 from that number. So, looking at this one and looking at the direction of the stochastic oscillator, which has had a high probability for a move in that direction, in this case, very obviously to the upside, this one fired off from 25,000 bucks. And, if you were to add on 40% from that low, where does that put Bitcoin? That puts Bitcoin 35, 36,000 bucks as well. And again, we kind of get like a time frame for this. That would be around end of July. Again, these are averages, doesn't need to be exactly that, but somewhere around there would kind of make sense. And actually, I did it again, man. I did it again. Here's the step.
Hey man, I'm totally watching and think you're talking. We're good. So whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, here it is. We don't need to go through the explanation again, but basically same sort of area right here, right? and given a bit of a time frame on that as well. In fact, the prior chart, which I will now remember to go back into here, if we go into the strategy tester, it can give us some ideas as far as when that move would likely occur as well. And I do believe it's kind of around the end of July date. Let me just pull it up right here. Yeah, average amount of bars and winning trades was 40. So on a 12-hour time frame, that's 20 days. This one again fired off on the 9th of this month. So yeah,
29th, yeah, right at the end of the month.
Somewhere around there, yeah. So those are my two models that I'm looking at right now. They basically get invalidated for the current move below about, let's just call it 29.5. I'd even say it would be quite concerning if Bitcoin came back down in the short term below about 30,800 or so. So until then, I'm just looking at this move to kind of move sideways and up from here and frustrate people more and more.
Grinding up would crush people. Slow grind up to exactly. Not give anyone a clear entry would crush people. What do you make of the fact that Bitcoin has obviously been effectively completely uncorrelated of late? Right. I mean, even CPI, PPI comes in, stock market goes nuts, Bitcoin just kind of sideways. I mean, I love that you can just look at the chart and trade it. You don't have to think about macro. You don't have to pretend you're a Fed expert anymore.
Yeah. No, I hear you 100% on that. Honestly, man, I don't really have any strong thoughts on that, to be honest with you. As far as Bitcoin's correlation, I think people look at correlation in the wrong way to begin with. I think you really want to be looking at the regression, like the R squared of correlation, because correlation, fluctuates on a tick by tick basis, and you don't really need to see things operate like that. What you're really looking for is a general trend in that same direction, which can emerge over, weeks and months across these markets. So I just look at it as, how shit coins typically play later than Bitcoin, Bitcoin makes a move, then it goes into Ethereum, then it goes into shit coins, blah, 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 blah. The way that I see it for Bitcoin is it's a shit coin relative to traditional markets. So traditional markets have gone, vertical, obviously. I mean, we saw.
Right. That's Bitcoin's actually wildly underperforming. I mean, you could say that it led, but right. I don't think so. But yeah.
But to me, wow, this one, holy shit, this one's almost at 16,000. Wow. Okay. I was looking at that as a target.
Dude, you look at the stocks right now are not so far off their highs, right? I mean, from last year, it's pretty nuts.
But my man, we have a looming recession. Yep.
Algo's breaking out, guys. I saw it right here. He doesn't look at shit coins. Busted.
There we go. Yeah.
That was worse than the hentai. He's looking at Algo, guys.
That's right, man. No more paywalls for me. I can buy my own. But the way that I look at it is traditional markets being strong, that probably spills into Bitcoin. Just happens a little bit later because Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, I mean, it's still a pretty risky market, and it's weaker relative to real stocks that have earnings and stuff like that. That would be my main disposition there. But again, I don't really have strong opinions on those correlations and whatnot.
So what's Algo doing over there versus Bitcoin?
It's actually, that was actually my Algo, not Algo coin.
Oh, algorithm.
That was that was a strategy. Yeah, exactly. So that was a strategy. It actually, I don't know if I necessarily want to go to it right now, but it just took a long, on a 10-minute time and closed it. So there you go. Game winning trade.
Yeah, he's literally live trading on the other screen while we're not watching.
It's actually my bot. Yeah. It does everything on its own, which is nice. But yeah. Nice and simple.
Is there anything else that you're watching? I mean, anything that any entries that you're stalking on any assets, or is it pretty much, you're looking at Bitcoin? I mean, do you think that the stock market's due for a reversal here? I think we got to get a correction soon, but hey, what do I know?
Yeah. I do think that it will play out a nice pullback relatively soon. 16,000 to 16,300 is kind of my area that I really be looking for. This is a hell of a move right here, though. It's I wouldn't short it though. I did. Sell.
I mean, but yesterday I had bought, admittedly, for investment portfolio on the way down, I bought Meta at 232 when it hit the 200 weekly. It may have broke right now. Not so nice though when it goes down to 89. But then I loaded up heavily. Again at 100, and I said yesterday I sold most of that at 314 yesterday.
Oh God, yeah, that couldn't have been better, man. Wow.
Right, but that doesn't mean I'm calling the top. It just means I'm super excited that I had 3x Meta trade within a year. Right?
I hear you on that.
I do think there might be a correction, but I also didn't sell it all. Right, so
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this weekly right here for NASDAQ, and it's a bullish engulfing. I mean,
yeah, it's
I mean,
bullish.
maybe it does go for 16,300 before it tries for a pullback, but this thing is, if that's not climbing the wall of worry, I don't know what the hell is. That is
and even if
insane.
it drops, that's going to make just the cup and handle of epic proportions.
Yeah, I mean, it could easily come down to like 14,000 bucks, and I'd still be bullish on it. You know, that's just insane. You know, other than that, the other chart that I like to watch recently is just Dixie. You know, the dollar index.
Yeah.
This one had a clean breakdown. Yeah. You know, I think that this one generally trades lower towards like 98, 97 region, and probably try for a bounce there. But until then, you know, I think that we have a nice rally in our hands, and probably a big correction maybe later this year. I think it could even be, you know, as much as like 30-40% for Bitcoin. But in the meantime, you know, how high does it get first? I think mid 30s is pretty reasonable. Things get really crazy, maybe low 40s. And if I'm just
to me.
Yeah. And if I really get crazy with it, man, if I really want to get Scott all jacked up over here, maybe mid 50s, maybe.
Yeah,
but
it could happen. I mean, Dixie, I was just thinking, I hadn't
that's like the perfect storm. Yeah,
I hadn't checked Dixie this morning, but sub 100 is meaningful.
Yeah, very meaningful.
99.79 I'm seeing, so that's meaningful.
100%. Yeah. So, you know, all of these things, all things considered, we've been looking at a pretty damn boring market actually in cryptocurrency land for the past 3-4 weeks, and you know, after a consolidation like that, I think you can expect that there's going to be some more fireworks on top of this current rally. You know, it'd be very uncharacteristic for it not to have continuation. Again, I have my invalidations below 29.5 and big warning flag below about 30,800, but as long as it's above there, sideways and up is the name of the game.
Sounds good to me, man. I appreciate your time as always. Let you go back to your watermelon and hentai.
Oh, baby. Can't wait.
Enjoy it. All right, man. You're a legend. I hope to have you on soon. And of course, on Spaces as well. Thanks, man.
Take care, man.
Guys, you know, the title, SEC is dead. Okay, they're not dead, but they're reeling. Alt season begins. I have no fucking idea, but it was really fun to watch yesterday. I do think that to Eric's point, like if we extrapolate that down to altcoins, I do think that we're going to see this bullish momentum continue, you know, kind of retrace a little bit here, up, all things pointing bullish. Gotta love it. Now we're going to go talk the shit out of XRP again on Twitter Spaces at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Guys, don't miss that, of course. I know that you've all already checked out MELD. Am I hitting it? There it is. Checked out MELD. But go do that down in the description. Guys, I got to run. I only got 20 minutes to get ready for the next show, which could go for hours. I appreciate you guys showing up. Huge thanks to all of the guests today. Meta Lawman, James Murphy, Dave Silver, and of course, the legend, Eric Krown. Peace, guys. See you on Monday.
That's dope.